Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today and hope you're doing well. I'm Carol Ortenberg, the editor of Nosh, and I'm joining you from my home in Boston. Today, we're going to be speaking with Jeremy Goldstein, who is the co-founder and COO both of Caliper Foods and Stillwater Brands. Already a rapidly evolving space, the worlds of CBD and cannabinoids have continued to see building consumer interest over the past few months. Today, Jeremy and I are going to discuss how his two businesses have evolved and where he sees an opportunity in the market. With that, let's get started. Jeremy, first and foremost, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. We've got a sunny day in Colorado, so I can't complain.
Now, to start, can you tell us a little bit about Caliper and Stillwater? It's not often I speak to someone managing two different companies at the same time.
So we started Stillwater in 2014, my co-founder and I, with the idea that cannabinoids as a whole are functional ingredients. The story that, sort of the origin story that we like to tell is that my co-founder's grandmother was having some pain and asked for a pot brownie. At that time, let's say 2014, that was pretty much the only sort of edible product we could find. We cut it into 20 pieces for her. Sent it to her. It was obviously everything about that was wrong. I mean, she was diabetic. She didn't want sweets. She couldn't trust the dosage, and ultimately went into her freezer and was never consumed. And that sort of pushed us to start Stillwater with the focus that we wanted to reach people like my co-founder's grandmother, who wanted to just use cannabinoids to feel a little bit better. And so we started off by making low dose functional THC-based edible products. And to do that, we had to develop water soluble technology because otherwise you're going to be stuck in the world of sort of candies and sweets and, for lack of a better term, sin food that people don't really like to consume every day, which is where the edibles industry started. And so we launched initially with a tea. And to do that, we created a water soluble powder. We ended up releasing that powder on its own in Colorado under the brand name Ripple. And that's gone on to be one of the leading THC-based edible products in the country. Around this time, people started coming to us to telling us that they were using our Ripple product to formulate beverages. And specifically, they wanted to do CBD beverages. We had expanded our product portfolio to have high CBD, low THC products. And they were using a product called Ripple Relief to go ahead and benchtop formulate for beverages. And that led to the starting of this second company that you referenced, which is Caliper Foods, which is focused on providing hemp-derived cannabinoid ingredients, CBD most specifically, to food and beverage manufacturers. And we also released our own line called Caliper CBD, which is the same technology that we perfected with Ripple, but in a CBD-only form, dissolvable powder that can be mixed into anything.
Wow, a lot of moving parts. Speaking of evolution, though, when you launched Stillwater, you had products under both the Stillwater brand as well as the Ripple brand. Starting this month, consumers will see a new look for your line of THC products and one that only features the Ripple brand name. So what was the motivation in evolving your branding as well as the naming?
I think maybe when we started, we were too cute by half. We were sort of looking at traditional big brands. I don't know, pretend we're Unilever. You're going to want a house of brands essentially underneath. What we found out in the dispensary world is that there's limited shelf space. You're essentially trying to build trust with the consumers more than anything else. And so having our gummies called Stillwater gummies, having our beverages called Stillwater beverages, and then having a product named Ripple, which became the most popular, not everybody understood that this was the same company. And so by unifying under the Ripple brand name, and we now have Ripple Quick Sticks, which is Ripple that can be poured directly onto the tongue, and Ripple gummies, people understand that they get the benefits that are associated with Ripple: fast acting, consistency being incredibly important. Everybody knows the sort of Marine dad story, right? I didn't feel anything. I took more. I ended up on the floor. That's exactly what we were trying to solve by creating a consistent edible. To do that, it needs to come on quickly and it needs to be the same every time. So that's what we say to people, is that cannabinoids are going to hit you differently depending on who you are. But if you take our products, you'll know that they hit you the same way they did yesterday again. So we rolled everything under the Ripple brand name so that people now have a choice. They can mix Ripple into a liquid, they can pour Ripple Quick Sticks under their tongue, or they can chew our Ripple gummies. So you get the same value propositions, but your way, and it's clear to customers.
Do you think we'll ever get to the place where we have these overarching companies with a house of brands underneath them? What What sort of changes do we need to see from the consumer as well as dispensary market to get to that?
I mean, I think if you have a fully federally legal market, that allows the opportunity for frankly national brands and getting to the place where you stop bifurcating the market, whether it be value brands and upscale brands, brand focused on a certain segment of the population. It's just not big enough now for that to make sense. But I certainly do think that's possible.
Now, along with the rebrand, you've also dropped several products from your portfolio. Tell us about the discontinuation of those lines and why you realized they weren't resonating with consumers, or maybe now just wasn't the right time for those products.
So we launched with the Stillwater tea, which I'd mentioned before, which was a fabulous product and had a very loyal following, but a very small following. And the reason why ultimately is that until a product like that, a low dose functional marijuana infused tea, can be sold at a place like Whole Foods, there's just going to be a limited space for it. People don't buy their teas, generally speaking, at dispensaries. They come in, they want something that is going to work fairly quickly, something that maybe they can even take, a few minutes after leaving the store. Having to brew a cup of tea didn't work perfectly. In addition, we released Ripple, the dissolvable powder, which can go in any beverage. So we essentially forced one product out of the market by replacing it with another, because now we say you can put this in your favorite tea, you can put it in your soda, you can put it in your juice, or you can just put it in the water. But ultimately, what I hope we see someday is a carve out maybe for low dose THC products, whatever that number is, 2.5%, that can be sold on grocery store shelves.
What do you think needs to happen to get to the point where we have that carve out on grocery store shelves?
That's a great question. I mean, I think the first step here has to be just federal legalization, right? We deschedule the drug. It's no longer a Schedule One drug. People start getting comfortable with it. Ultimately, if you start regulating it like alcohol, right? Alcohol can be bought outside of liquor stores. It can be bought with different rules in each state, at grocery stores, et cetera. That's exactly the type of model that I would love to see THC follow. That doesn't mean that 100 milligram product should be, available on a Whole Food shelf. But a product like our low dose tea has a place there as a functional ingredient, we believe.
You touched upon consistency as being really important to consumers. What else have you learned draws shoppers to a product in a dispensary and then converts them into being a loyal consumer?
Sure. I did touch on it before, and I do think it is the most important thing is trust, right? You're dealing with cannabinoids that have an effect on people. They're going to change the way that you feel. Knowing that the way that it made you feel, if that worked for you one day, that it's going to have the same effect on you in the next is the most important thing. On top of that, you've got your normal attributes that are going to be important for a CPG product. Taste, right? Convenience, form factor. All those things are important, the same way they would be if you walked into Walgreens and bought something from the nutraceutical aisle. You want it to work for you, and you want it to work in a way that makes sense for your lifestyle.
Now, thinking about nutraceuticals, you've always approached CBD and THC as just a functional food ingredient. How has
hmm
that guided product development, and why did you kind of take that approach from the beginning?
Yeah, for us, the most important thing was this belief that in low doses, cannabinoids could help people have better days. We weren't promising that cannabinoids were going to cure a disease or any type of irresponsible claims, frankly, that aren't necessarily well researched. But what we did promise people was you could get a feeling maybe analogous to the way that you feel when you take 3 deep breaths and having that feeling last for hours. That was sort of our guiding light. Um, and so to do that and to give people that opportunity and make them feel safe about it, we realized we needed to incorporate cannabinoids into products that people felt comfortable with that were part of their lives already, which is why we started with tea, for example. So that approach led to everything that we did. We knew that we needed to create a product that was backed by science, a product that was quality, that was consistent. And to do that, we hired a bunch of people from the food industry from the very beginning. We've got people from White Wave Danone. We've got people from Mars. We've got people from Ingredion. We've got people from Church and Dwight, just to name a few well-known food companies. And that's sort of been our ethos from the beginning.
It's interesting that you mentioned hiring people from the food industry because we've seen food entrepreneurs try to start CBD brands and not see success either. So it seems like there's this balance between science and food that you really have to strike a middle ground in developing a product.
I would say there are a couple things going on right now as far as startups. As we've talked about, the FDA is currently not regulating food as or regulating CBD in food, beverage, or supplement, limiting the market size. Not exactly what you asked, but that fundamentally making it difficult for anybody that wants to launch a CBD brand in those spaces. But I agree with you. You have to balance a bunch of things to stand out in this market. We would argue that the most important thing right now that one needs to focus on is science. Right? Everyone is out there making the same sort of generalized claims. In a lot of cases, claims, frankly, that the FDA will shut you down for because there's no data for, and because it's not approved as a use in food, beverage, or supplement. We tend to focus on pharmacokinetic studies, right? These are things we can control. And so by that, I mean, if you take our product, how well is it going to be absorbed? CBD is notoriously poorly absorbed. And so we created a product with Ripple and with Caliper that is readily absorbed into the body, and Caliper 4.5 times more absorbed than an oil-based CBD. That's something that is scientifically backed, that we've done with a local partner university, that we can talk about, and that our ingredient customers can promote in their own products.
You mentioned the FDA. You and your co-founder are advocates for the industry. What are you looking for from the FDA in order to move these categories forward?
First and foremost, we'd love the FDA to get off its hands. It needs to be doing something, and right now it's essentially doing nothing. When Congress passed the Farm Act, the Farm Bill, basically they solved the supply problem. So it became legal to produce hemp and all its derivatives as long as it had less than 0.3% THC. Wonderful. Farmers jumped in, processors jumped in, everybody jumped in with the anticipation that there was going to be a channel to put CBD into food and beverage. The FDA has done nothing, essentially, except talk about the fact that they're looking into it. And so what's happened in the meantime is that you've got bad actors who are filling up this void. We've got sort of a reverse Goldilocks situation. You've got customer confusion, and I would say we're kind of at the trough of disillusionment for CBD products. Everybody was excited about what the possibility was. Lots of Me Too products came to the market that were labeled confusingly, that didn't actually have the CBD content that they promised. So consumers tried, didn't necessarily have a great experience, and aren't coming back. And that's terrible for everybody, both the consumers and the businesses in the industry. So yeah, we just want FDA to regulate, really specifically regulate it as a dietary supplement and/or as food and beverage.
You mentioned that the FDA has been sitting on their hands, but some might argue that the FDA has their hands pretty full right now dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. So why do you think they should carve out time to focus on the CBD and cannabis industries?
I would argue now is a perfect time for the FDA to get involved. We're in a difficult economic time as a country, and there's the ability to generate great tax revenue from this industry and to help out farmers and extractors and people that poured a lot of money into this in the anticipation of regulation, and then have watched prices plummet. Farmers have seen the price of CBD drop, to 1/10 of what it was a year ago. We've had major bankruptcies from extraction companies. There's an entire industry here waiting to be unlocked, and all it needs is FDA oversight. So I think it's a perfect time in conjunction with all the activities that are going on around COVID to help stimulate the economy.
Well, I just want to say thank you for giving us time today and telling us a little bit more about what's going on with the business and your views on the industry. I really appreciate you sharing your insights.
You bet. It's been a lot of fun and nice to meet you, Carol.
Nice to meet you too.